transform your life after being in toxic relationships or being raised by toxic people, and to help you understand about trauma bonding and how to help yourself to trauma bonding and all of that in just a minute here. And I'm going to wait for people to come in because I just posted this live stream, and we'll get started right now. So, trauma bonding. I have an actual playlist for trauma bonding, so I will link that after this video airs to the replay. So there's lots and lots of information and videos available to you to understand what trauma bonding is. So we're going to not do that part here, except to say that when you've been in toxic relationships or when you've been manipulated by narcissistic people, the feelings of attachment are not healthy attachment. What they are is a bonding that comes from the trauma that you experience, from the intermittent reinforcement, the love bombing and the devaluing, and it creates a confusing and a conflicted place in your mind, which creates trauma bonding. Okay, like I said, I have a whole lot of videos that explain it in detail, so we're going to skip that part and go straight to what to do or how it feels when you're trauma bonded. So, hey Chris, thanks for being here. When people are trauma bonded to anyone, they're not making choice. They're not able to make decision. They're not able to function outside of the trauma bond without a heck of a lot of stress, pain, frustration, hurt, sadness, fear going along with it. Okay, because everything's being controlled, so to speak, by the trauma bonded feeling. What that feels like when someone is trauma bonded, my experience is an absolute loss of self, loss of choice, loss of agency, and giving over that to the other person. Not because you want to, because it's literally how you're functioning and how you're operating and how your mind is working at that time. And so when you try to leave or when you're discarded, the feelings of wanting to go back, the feelings of wanting to win that person back over, or the feelings of not being able to get away if you're trying to leave and you can't, and you know you should leave, but you're not, are mixed up with this way of thinking, right? It's not coming from a choice and from self. It's coming from what you think is love and connection, but is actually a toxic bonding to that person from the manipulation. You've been kind of brainwashed into believing that you belong in that situation. And it's really difficult to get out because it feels like attachment, and it feels like love and connection. But love and connection are not, they're not constricting and contracting and controlling and manipulating. Love and connection are open, free choice, expanding, growth, change, harmony, right? And so it's actually, when you look at it and define the way you feel when you're in love, right? And you're in those situations, and then you look at what love is in its purest form, there's going to be a conflict, and there's going to be a complete difference. And so that's kind of how you know that you're not in something that is healthy and good for you. You're in something that you're being controlled, okay? And it's not like a narcissist is like, oh, there's my new target, I'm going to take them for supply and I am going to trauma bond them. No, it's just the nature of how, I mean, sure, somebody that knows what they're doing might do that because it works. I believe that a person I was with knew exactly what they were doing. They didn't have the same words for it, but they knew that it was a way to control someone, was to set up situations where you build them up and tear them down, and build them up and tear them down. They knew. And they even said words to indicate that they knew. Does that make sense? And so yes, I think they do know sometimes on some level. However, a lot of times the garden variety narcissist, right, is just doing what they do because it has worked. It has worked in their life to build people up and then pull the rug out from under them and become the source of that person's need for validation or validating source. Does that make sense? And then not give it, and then give it, and then not give it, and then eventually that person's hooked on them, looking and seeking and trying to get attention from there. Is it something like Stockholm syndrome? It is the same thing as Stockholm syndrome, except for it isn't in the situation of prisoner, right? A captive. You become just like a captive, but it's not like Stockholm syndrome is defined based on situations where someone is held captive against their will, a prisoner, so to speak, who becomes sympathizing and feels camaraderie with their captors. And so basically they're a bird in a cage with the door wide open. They won't leave because they have loyalty to the captors, because, you know, they can tear you down, to torture you, tear you down, and then offer you the very thing that fixes you. Like, you know, the narcissist is the poison and the remedy. They're the injury and the balm, you know, like they are both things. And so because of that, we learn to turn to them to fix the problem. Plus, you know, if it's a parent, whether it's a parent, a friend, or someone in your life, you know, and it's very different when it's, okay, let's talk about that. It's different when it's like an institutional or a, what's the word? Like when it's from, what's the word? Like a cult or a religion or a, you know, that kind of narcissism where it's communal, where it's like a bigger picture. You still have the trauma bonding, right? But it's not the same, like, it can be hard to relate to. So some examples of that might be setting up situations where you have value in the community. So say it's a church situation or a work situation or some other kind of institutional situation. And they'll set up a way for you to have value, even if it's a very small way for you to have value, right? And then they will take that value away. Or they'll, you know, you're a disappointment because you're not meeting up to the standards that you're supposed to, right? And then, so they mess with your mind. They start messing with your mind by giving and taking and giving and taking, giving and taking. Or in those situations, they pretend to have your back, and they do have your back. Oh, they'll have your back until you have a thought of your own, until you're not following protocol, until, you know, whatever it is. And then because afraid of exposure, being turned on, of other people in the community also having thoughts of their own, then they have to control you by, you know, blacklisting you, smearing you, attacking you, right? And so the way you get trauma bonded to that is that, first of all, you get stuck in the cycle. You can't get out sometimes. You know, when it's an institutionalized type of thing, it's very difficult to get out of sometimes. And if you can't get out of it, you've got to operate within it, and they're going to keep playing the game. So the trauma bonding is different in that your reliance on it sometimes. Like, say it's a job and you legitimately can't get out. You cannot find another job, whatever it is. Like you can't leave it in that moment, and they know it. So then you're reliant on them for your well-being, your income, and whatever, but it's also messing with your head because you're relying on them for your validation and your self-esteem, or you just want to prove that you are the thing you know you are, and they're tearing you, right? Does that make sense? So it's a little bit different in that case, but it's the same exact process, where it's the intermittency of it. It's the wholeness of, like, yes, you're part. Narcissists take you in to their world, right? That's why it's so addictive. You're being brought into something so that feels so special, that feels so totally a world they bring you into this world when they're love bombing you and grooming you, and they plant you in a place in that world. They assign you a role, and in that role is meant to support the narcissist delusional world that you are now a part of. Okay, how are you supposed to have self in that? How are you supposed to have any That's why we get anxious, you guys, because we're not able to be self. We're having to fill a role that we never asked to be. And while that's happening, you're starting to believe that your self-worth is part of that, that your love is part of that. It becomes your whole world. To take that away all of a sudden with a discard, you're left, you're just a shell, right? You don't know who you are. You're left this little quivering, like, what do I do? That's another piece of the trauma bonding. You are reliant on that narcissistic person for well-being, right? You're not, but it feels like you are. Okay. So that's a little bit of stuff that we don't really talk too deeply about, but that's my experience and what I witness in people. And then there is the part of us that is trying, they steal your use of no, meaning that they don't let you say no because they force everything upon you, their will, their everything. Yeah. Is that what you mean? And yeah, hey Angela, and so totally over, and Chris, and who else is in here? Okay, so the other thing with trauma bonding, well, what did I want to say? That it is the head and the heart and the cognitive dissonance. Okay, what I see the most when I'm coaching people is people in states of cognitive dissonance. When they come because let's put it that way, when they're trying to heal that piece and they're trying to get out of it and just feel better and just feel like they're them again, right? In the beginning, you can't say no. Oh, totally. And not only can you not say no, you don't want to, because in the beginning you're being groomed and the love bombing. Why would you say no, right? Unless you are, and you're coerced, and it's subtle, right? It's subtle coercion to get you to bend to their will. Yeah. So anyway, when you are in a state of cognitive dissonance, what's happening is your head is knowing a truth and your heart or emotions are saying, yeah, but, right? But I love them, but I can't get away from it, but I can't function without it. But, and your head's like, yeah, this is really, really awful. This person's a horrible person, or the situation's really bad, whatever it is, get away from it. And so this isn't because you're dumb. This isn't because you're not emotionally mature. This isn't because you just need to get over it. It isn't because whatever your friends are saying that, come on, it's been a month, right? It's not that. This is actually something that happens. And like I said, in other videos, I explain the chemical process and the brain process and the way this is all affecting you. So go watch those later so you can understand that piece, because it's important. But what I want to talk about here is, what do you do with that? What do you do with that feeling when you can't let go? You literally can't let go. And what I see is people are really, really locked in a groove of how they think and how they feel. So it's a biofeedback, or it's a feedback loop, right? So it's your mind saying, this person's bad. Or what happens is not even this person's bad. How could they do this to me? How could they be so horrible? How could they, whatever. And your heart grabbing onto that, right? Your emotions grabbing onto that, saying, yeah, oh my gosh, I hurt so much, right? And then your mind going, well, it must be me. Or it's them, and then it goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth between your heart and your mind, and you're trying to solve the problem of how to get out of it from there. How are you supposed to get out of it from there? You can't. Most people can't. It takes something else. It takes time. It takes awareness. It takes education to believe and to think. It takes, what people say usually as they're healing from this is, something just clicked. And I had to be the one to make the change. I had to be the one to stop this cycle of the way my head and my mind and my emotions are talking to one another. And so that's why, we've always said, Do the pattern interrupts. Stop yourself from thinking about it. Think about something else. Do it on purpose. Redirect your thoughts, redirect your feelings, whatever. And yes, you finally let go. Oh, good, Angela. Yeah, it really is tricky. And what I'm seeing in this personally, from watching people and from working with people, from experiencing it myself, from life, right, is that there's another way. There are many ways to get through this, right? If, like I've said a million times, if there was 1 to 5 ways, we'd all be out there writing books about those 1 to 5 ways, and everyone would be better in a month, right? Because it'd be snap, go to. There isn't a go-to thing for each person, because each person is responding their own individual personal way to the way this affects you. And so how do I want to word this? One thing, what he was saying, it's definitely important to have education and support to break the trauma bond. And confusing, isn't it? It really is. And when you're in it, it's helpless and hopeless. And even people who get you, you don't feel like they get you. And even the validation you get doesn't feel like enough. Or it's enough, but it doesn't help, right? And so you really feel, you're just in the feels so big that, and the thoughts are supporting it. And yes, the pattern interrupts helps. So I guess what I'm saying is finding a way to function from a different part of your brain, to understand from a different place in your mind, from a different, getting out of the trap and doing it from there rather than trying to do it from within. You're not, okay, you guys, we're trying to heal this. This is why it takes so long, right? Because you're trying to heal this through understanding why the emotions, why the narcissist is manipulating you from an emotional place. It's not an emotional thing, you guys. It's understanding it from their point of view, not from your own. If you try to understand it from your point of view, you're never going to get it, because why would you do that to someone? Why would you, instead of just being happy, light, and joyful, be a total jerk to get attention, right? Like, why would you do that? You wouldn't. It would make no sense. So understanding them from your perspective, like, how could you hurt someone that way knowing you're doing it and being manipulative? Well, you couldn't, because you have empathy enough to stop yourself once you go there. Does that make sense? So you have to understand it, I think, from the point of view of the narcissist. And this is where, go watch the video about empathy. Okay, this is where empathy is used differently. This is where you take your super skills of understanding others and relating to others and apply them differently. It's not always about the feelings, okay? It's not always about your emotions. You have to get out of your emotions to understand the narcissist's emotions. And yes, they have them, okay? Greed, want, power. These are all emotional feelings, right? Frustration, they have sadness, they have for themselves, right? Self-pity. These are emotions. So this is where they're operating from. And understanding that that's where they're operating from, you see the world differently. You see the reasons that they're doing it. They're doing it for power. They legitimately are doing it to control you so that you won't leave, so they have someone to do all their emotional work for them, right? And to carry the weight of the relationships, to all the stuff that they're doing when they're hurting you. So understanding it from there, oh, that's really different. I can totally see how and why they do it. If you flip back into your brain and you think, how could, I still don't get how someone could do that. Then just tell yourself, thank you. That means that you're an amazing person. You're a loving, kind person. That's why you don't get it, because you would never do that. You cannot relate to it. And then so totally over, yeah, you're going to have to study them You already know. You already know you. And yes, and studying them. Okay, so then there's that. Okay, but does that really heal you? It's a start. It's a strength. It's one place to begin, and it's one place to like blip out of the trauma bonds for a second, just to get a contrast and have a different way of thinking. Personally, the way I work with people lately, and as much as I can, is helping people come into a state of presence and finding oneself again, finding a truth or a clarity or an expression of self, and thinking from that place. I don't know how to describe that without getting too far right now, but from there you can find a different healing. And it starts with all kinds of things. So on a practical, simpler level, yes, do the pattern interrupts, right? You catch yourself asking questions like, how could they do this? Okay, the first time you ask, how could they do this? Cool, go with it. Second time you ask it, all right. Third, fourth, fifth, it's time to stop, okay? You're never going to understand it from your own perspective. You're not, because if you did, you'd also be a narcissist and you'd get it, right? Like you'd totally get it. You're never going to understand it from your own perspective, your own point of view. You're going to have to step into their point of view to get it. And that isn't, when I did that for the first time, it was right in the face of someone who was psychopathic, okay? And I legitimately could feel like what they experience. I don't know, it was like this, the way empathy feels when you are empathizing with someone, only I was empathizing and open to who they really were at the same time. And it was the coldest, darkest experience of being human to have that like moving through me. And I thought, oh, I can't do this anymore. I can't. If that's the truth, no. Yeah, that isn't something that my personal energy can match with, right? Like I'm not into that. No, thank you. It's more than just selfish greed. This was, I don't care what other people think or feel. I just want what I want. That's it. And yeah, so I had to keep reminding myself I was betraying myself by staying in the relationship in the way that you are. Yeah, by staying in the relationship and trying to maintain it status quo, you're going to have to cut off parts of your personality, alter parts of yourself, shape yourself to mold into what they want to fit their delusion. So yeah, you're betraying parts of yourself all the time. You can't be your whole self with a narcissistic person. They don't let you. So other ways to work with the trauma bonds, so that, not work with them, to sort of work outside of them, besides the pattern. And by pattern interrupt, I mean you catch yourself doing it, asking questions like, how could they do this? Why are they doing this to me? How could a person act that way? Even things like, they seem happy with the new supply, it must have been me. Things like that, where you can watch 5 different videos, get the same answer, that it's not about you, it's about them, right? And it's still not enough. Stop seeking the answers to those questions. Those are questions that are holding you locked in trauma bonding. They're holding you locked in your emotional experience of the pain you're having from the manipulation and abuse that person caused. Change the question, okay? Pattern interrupt it means get up. If you're sitting down, stand up. Look out a window if you're looking at a desk. If you're outside, go inside. If you're standing up, sit down. Do something different with your body. Interrupt the pattern of thought using your body to change your environment. Now, look around. Find 5 things that are blue. Find, 6 round objects, whatever it is. Use a different part of your mind. And now tune into your emotions and say, I wonder what else I'm feeling. I'm curious about, oh, curiosity, there's one. Okay, so pattern interrupt you basically interrupt yourself. Seriously, interrupt it. And then come back to, okay, I had this question of how can and why, and it has a big emotional field. That's your indication that you're in the trauma mode, okay? You have a thought that has this huge emotional field that's pulling you down. It isn't elevating you. It isn't enlightening you. It isn't having you, it's not helping. It's just making that feeling grow. That means you're feeding that feeling with the thought. If that's useful for your life, then go ahead and do it. If that is not useful for your life, interrupt it and stop. That doesn't mean you don't get to experience the feeling. Tell your feelings, I know, this sucks. This hurts. You're going through it. We're going to try some new things, okay? We're going to try things until it gets better, okay? Talk to yourself kindly. Tell your mind, you know what? You're doing lots of thinking and you're super smart. We're going to just pause for a second, okay? We're going to pause the thinking so that that can just disconnect from the feelings for just a second, because we're going to try and see what else is possible, because there's a whole lot of things possible. And as you talk to yourself in a different way, what are you doing? I'll tell you what you're doing. You're creating a new neural pathway. You are no longer operating from trauma bonding. You're operating from a logic that is more present to yourself, that's more aware of the actual situation, not the feelings of the trauma, okay? You're not spinning in the same loop. Does that make sense? So in doing that, okay, you've just pattern interrupted, you just talked kindly to all your parts, and now what? Well, now you can change the question. You can say, I can see that they act this way. I wonder what choice I'll make for boundaries with this person, with myself about thinking about this person, things like that, right? Like you can change, oh, this is good. Just Me says, I found it most useful to be in a logical, factual state of mind when I have to deal with narcissistic people. I don't let my feelings get involved. Yeah, and that's one tool. Now, can you do that and still honor yourself? Right? And by deal with narcissistic people, what do you mean? Do you have to be with them daily, or are you talking about like low doses of them? If you're talking about now and then, totally. If you're having to live like that daily, you're cutting off a part of yourself, your emotions, in order to be in your life. So how can you do that and also have a rich and full emotional life? Those are questions. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying those are real questions, because we don't want to stay locked in our logic. What happens is disassociation from our feelings, your brother. So, but how often do you have to deal with them? Is it like a couple times a month, a couple hours, or is it like daily? I don't know what that means, Carlos. I don't know what that means. It doesn't make sense to me. Okay. Anyway, so those are some, I've given a couple of practical ways to work with yourself while you're trauma bonded. So some other things, seek support, the obvious, right? Seek support. Find someone you trust to talk to, get coaching, get therapy, whatever you think will work for you. Try different things, do things simultaneously, whatever it is. This is a time of crisis. This is a time of a really high emotional need for yourself, and it's okay. You're not needy, you're not too much, you're not anything. You are in a state of crisis, and you need oftentimes the support that goes with that. So don't be afraid to reach out, get peer support, get coaching, get group coaching, whatever it is, so that you have a place to just work through it, okay, that is understanding, that is actually useful and helpful for you. And then, give yourself time. Sometimes going back to basics when you're trauma bonded, meaning, did you shower today? Did you eat? Did you rest? Did you, what are you doing? What are you doing for yourself? Where's the self-care? Self-care is super important when you're trauma bonded. You've forgotten yourself. Let's come back to self. We got to We got to have good thoughts for ourselves. We have to have food in our bodies and rest and all that stuff. So come back to the self-care. Do something nice for yourself. That's also self-care. You're not going to feel, if you wait for your feelings to be ready to do self-care, it's going to take longer. This is one of those hard parts where you have to do it anyway, even though you don't feel like it. And it starts to improve things. If nothing else, it will give you a foundation of better treatment towards self. And that's not a bad thing. All right. And so you said your brother, once a month, I had to let go of everything that happened through childhood and young adulthood, fresh slate. Expect anything at any minute and expect nothing from him ever. Yeah. So that would make sense once a month, just to keep it logical, keep it on track, keep it not personal. I mean, really, if something affects you personally, just me, a phrase I would use with myself is this really mine? Oh, it isn't? Return to sender. To myself, not to him, right? Because that'd be childish. But to yourself, is this really mine to take on? If it starts affecting you? Nope. Return to sender. Just picture it floating back and being his problem, you know? And yeah, I can understand that's a lot of undoing and a lot of, we don't talk about that. I think we should have a video about siblings, adults who have grown up with a sibling who ends up being a narcissist as an adult. Does that make sense? And yeah. Yeah. So anything else? What else do you guys want to suggest to people for when they're trauma bonded? I realize I'm going off in a different direction here. Hey, Rich. Have one what? Have one what, please? What are we saying here? There is a link. Oh, okay. So Angela's asking for a link to the group coaching. So you guys love this group. I do. I love it. We meet Tuesdays and Thursdays. Oh, you have a sibling like that. Okay. We meet Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4:30 and Fridays at 11 a.m., 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. And it's just ongoing. And you can join whenever, and you get 4 weeks for $60 for 3 meetings a week. And they run about an hour to hour and a half each meeting, depending on how many people show up and how much is needed for talking. So give it about an hour, and you're welcome to come in and leave. You know, if you can't stay the whole time, it's totally fine. And if you want to, that's fine too. A lot of people just listen. A lot of people like to talk. So just, you use it how you need it, right, for yourself. And just this morning, we were talking about how much growth and change people have made in the amount of time that they've been doing this and other forms of healing, and to start taking a look at that, because, and this is another thing, you guys. Okay, so trauma bonding. Let's come back to the topic. When you're trauma bonded, it can be kind of like dark, right? Like nothing's good. So, and you're not getting any better. You don't feel like you're getting any better. Everything feels like a backslide all the time. Like you make 1 step forward and 20 steps back. It's really important to celebrate for a moment, even a second, the growth that you are making, and understand that growth doesn't always feel good while it's happening, okay? And that most people who put in the effort for themselves going through this come through this an amazing version of themselves, okay? People who are willing to put in the effort to make changes in their life that are necessary, or to use this experience and this horrible trauma bonded feeling that they're having to benefit their life later. Does that make sense? There is so much learning. You're sticking your mind back together after manipulation. And there's so much awareness you can have for yourself, and so much growth you can have for yourself, to the point where you're like, you don't say, thank you, narcissist, that was great. But you say, you know what? Look what I made from that situation. Look what happened. okay, yeah, this horrible thing happened and this person manipulated me, or my parents, I grew up in manipulation, whatever, and toxic. And look where I am now. Look who I am actually. The learning who you really are and the beauty of who you are and the spark of who you are, that can come from this, you guys. So have some hope that there is even moments, even if you only have it for moments and it takes a while to get there, it's okay. All right. Oh, and then Angela, yes, there is a link to the group in every description of every video, or you can, if you search my name on Google and coaching, Lise Colucci, Lisecolucci, the website will pop up and you can go there, and then Chris is going to link it here, and then we'll try to put it in the comments as well, so it's there. Okay. Yes, send me an email. Okay. 18 hours a day of light, 18 hours of work right now. Oh my gosh, that's a lot. Let's see what else we got going on here. Did I miss something? I did not. Okay. All right. So what else with trauma bonding? Anything you guys in chat want to add that I can say out loud for anyone watching or rewatching about if they're trauma bonded? What do they do? What should they do right now? I mean, know that it's okay. Know that you're going to get through it. Know that it's normal, totally normal to feel this weird trauma bonded feeling. That cognitive dissonance gets better as you start working with healing, okay? And stop looking back to the narcissist for answers. Stop looking back to understanding them as a person. Here's a tip, okay? Trying to understand the individual who was the person in your life and why they did something isn't going to help you as much as understanding narcissism on the whole. Understanding that narcissism functions in a certain way in people, and that people who are narcissistic or have other personality disorders and are manipulative because of it function a certain way. That understanding that in general, then you can apply it to your situation, not necessarily try and make that narcissistic person in your mind into something you think they should be, or into something you wish they were. Okay. Another thing is stop wishing away your time. Stop wishing they were something that they're not. That's, first of all, kind of controlling. Okay. It's truth. We can't control other people, and we know that, and we wouldn't want to, right? But to wish someone was different than they actually are isn't being fair to who they really are. And right there, it shows that the nature of the relationship isn't healthy, because when you're with someone that you love, you want them to be who they are, right? Even the parts that you wish they'd do differently, right? If they're not toxic to you. Of course you wish they'd be different. Of course, I don't mean that, but I mean truly, once you're past the first hit of emotions about it, we have to be with the person we're with. We have to experience them for who they are. And we can make suggestions. Hey, this hurts my life. What do you think? And if they don't want to make the changes because they either don't want to, or they can't because they lack the empathy to make those changes, we have to face that. That reality means that person doesn't work for my life. The situation doesn't work for my life. And it's my choice then to step away from it, even if I was discarded, right? Or even if you're, so it's about seeing truth, and it's about allowing that truth. That doesn't mean you allow them to hurt you. It means you allow it to be the reality of who they are. So painful, so hard, big realizations happen. And from that place, you can make choice. Do you want to stay with that? Is that what you want for your life? If it is, okay, these are the sacrifices you have to make. If it isn't, okay, these are the hurdles you're going to have to jump, right? And the things you're going to have to live through to get out of it. So, yeah, anything else, you guys, for how to help people who are trauma bonded, let me know in the chat and I will read them. Trying to think of things that aren't so readily talked about, because I mean, like I said, I've got a ton of videos on trauma bonding. Go watch those, because there'll be more practical tips there of, like, you know, the things we all talk about. I'm trying to go a little deeper here because there's a lot more to it than just just do some pattern interrupts and you'll feel better. Oh no, that doesn't make you feel better. It makes your brain do something different, which means you have to do it over and over and over in order for it to become a habit. Once you get the habit going, then you can catch it in the moment. You catch it in the moment enough times, you start having experiences. Those experiences start creating neural pathways. Those neural pathways become where your brain goes when the thing happens again. And then you've made change. That takes a while, right? It's not an easy, simple thing of just, it's not a Band-Aid. It's an actual tool to make changes, okay? And yeah, it's an unfortunate thing when we are in these positions to begin with, because you guys, you didn't put yourself here. You were groomed, you were lied to, you were manipulated, you were controlled. I get it. And you didn't put yourself here. The other person is 100% responsible for their toxic actions. The unfortunate part is now you're responsible for helping yourself to get through it. It's the other person's not going to do it. They are twisted people. They literally are. It's a twisted way of thinking. It's twisted from, like, if you have empathy and like kindness and connection and human interactions that are positive, and then you just twist them all up and squeeze all the goodness out of it, you pretty much have narcissism, right? Okay. Yeah, more tools for the toolbox. Yeah, absolutely. Twisted logic, conflicting logic from anything that wants goodness. Remember that narcissistic people don't want deep connection. That's the scariest place in the world for them, because the only way to have deep connection is to be present to yourself. Otherwise, you're just relating through sympathy, and you're just relating through your version of reality. If you are present to yourself, you're open to other people's realities, okay? Narcissists throw you into states of detachment and disassociation, which throws you so far out of yourself that you relate only to, it's basically, here's what I think. When we're with narcissists, okay, we have so much emotional trauma going on and so much conflict, and then oftentimes our go-to mechanism for safety is disassociation emotionally, right? Like check out. When you're checked out, what are you but a blank slate to be filled with a narcissist's manipulation? So it's part of the cycle. You're not going to heal from that state, from the not feeling state, from the not being connected to yourself state. We have to connect with ourself. And another thing with narcissists, like I was saying, is that they don't want that deep connection. As empathic people, we do, okay? And we want to be present to ourselves and the other person and feel that connection, that truth of two people's sparks of humanity coming together to have some kind of connected experience, right? That is energy versus supply. Supply is, you do that, you be present, and I'll take that. And I don't want you to see me, right? And so that's why they're draining. That's why they are, anyway, I'm getting off topic here, but they say it takes at least 21 days to form a habit, but it could take more than 200 for neural pathways. Yeah, you have to commit. You do. You have to, you don't have to, but it's useful if you want change to start doing things with some order to them in order to make the changes. If you are doing things from the trauma, you are reinforcing the trauma. And I think that is, okay, I don't know. I don't want to say anything against anybody, or like, this is not something people really talk about. But when you are feeling, like, okay, I feel my feelings, and they're associated with a thought. And I always was like, why can't I get over this? Why can't I, they say feel your feelings, okay, I'm feeling them and it's not getting better. Okay, I get into my logic. Yes, I understand the feelings. Still not getting better. Frustrated for years and years in that same loop, and every thought, decision, choices made, even including the tools in my toolbox coming from that place, right, in my brain, we're doing nothing but reinforce a need for the tool in order to fix this problem. It wasn't changing anything. So what I'm suggesting is being present to yourself differently. And I've been talking about that a lot in the live streams, and then I'm posting them up as videos. Go watch those, you guys. They don't have a lot of views right now because people want to hear about narcissists, but you guys, you are what's important. Your healing. The narcissist is easy. It's obvious. It's the same thing over and over and over with them. There is no growth. There is no change. There is no expansion. Go watch those videos, because what I'm suggesting is to start thinking from a different place in your mind, so that you're not reinforcing the tool needed for the trauma healing. In other words, you're creating some other kind of program to run while this other ick is still going on. And I've talked it through on those videos, and I will keep talking it through. And if you want more information, I really need it. It's really easier when I can speak to you. So yeah, what do I think of somatic healing? I think it's fantastic, and it's a piece of this. Okay, we got to remember our body's involved in this. And that is one way to get to this place I'm talking about, Angela, is through somatic healing. So with somatic healing, we're talking about our body's experience of the trauma. Okay, and I don't mean, well, it could be physical, right? It could be an obvious thing, or it could be, okay, so you're trauma bonded. You feel worthless. I'm just going to assign an emotion. You feel worthless. With somatic healing, you'd be like, where in the body is worthless? Where is it hitting you? Where do you notice it? Well, I don't know, but I've had a stomach ache since this happened. Okay, so your stomach is feeling the worthlessness. Okay, let's talk to that part of the body. Let's send some love and care to that part of the body. Let's relax that part of the body. So it's a way to disconnect. See, because what happens is you have a thought, you have an emotion, you have a thought, you have an emotion, right? And it's a feedback loop. Well, there's another piece. It starts to reside in the cells of the body. Shoulders go up. The chest is tight. The throat, these are common. The throat is tight. The head hurts. The shoulders go up. The stomach hurts. The guts hurt. Okay, all over body fibromyalgia type pain. These are really common things from this particular type of abuse that happen to people. They don't have to touch you to hurt you. We're doing it within our own bodies from the way we take in the emotional trauma. It sucks, right? Like that's not cool, but it's what happens. So somatically, you can rework the trauma by simply relaxing the parts of the body, so to speak. It's not simple. I'm saying simply, but it's not simple, okay? Because you have to, because it's a whole disconnect. What I'm suggesting is a different way. And that is, yes, have the awareness and use your presence to send what that body part needs. And I've explained it a little bit in some of the other videos, so it's easier if I talk someone through it, either live or like in person to explain it. But it's really, it works for me. It works for people. I watch it work, like boom, change in people. Seriously, it's amazing. And there's a relaxation to it instead of a force. Here's another thing, you guys, and this is going to be another kind of deep and divergent topic here. When you meet a problem with resistance, you're feeding the problem. Remember that we have been mind messed with. That's the polite way of putting it, right? We have been manipulated. We have had our minds brainwashed, right, by the situation. So if you meet that head on with resistance, so I feel sad, I don't want to feel sad. Whoa, you just created a resistance there. That resistance feels like what? To me, it feels like energy. Emotions are nothing more than energy running through the body, okay, with a thought assigned to it. That's why the body is affected. So if you can alter the energy and you can alter the flow of the way your energy is flowing without resistance, things start to change. Does it make it 100% better? No, there's still the psychological work that needs to be done. This is another type of healing to help you and tools you can put in your toolbox to help you while you're doing the psychological healing. Does that make sense? So it kind of relates to what you're asking about somatically, only I wouldn't call it somatic, I would call it energetic, working with the body. So yes, remember that, okay, so if you have a trigger and you're triggered by a green truck that drives by because the narcissist drove a green truck, okay? What happens to your body? Ooh, instant fear. My stomach hurts. I'm scared. I'm sad, whatever, right? Tears start falling out of your eyes and your brow gets tight or whatever. You know, you notice, just noticing and tracking where your body is picking up the signals. That's great. That's a step. Okay. And as you step through it, okay, relax. But what is telling you to relax? Are you telling yourself to relax because you're supposed to with your mind, or are you coming into your body to tell your body to relax? So mindfulness plays a part here, if you want to call it that. Coming into your body, relaxing, taking a breath in, exhaling heavily. Feel that instant release when you exhale heavily for 1 second. Take that feeling in your mind and send it to the parts that are stressed out with a thought. Use your thoughts differently. Take an inhale. Yeah, stomach, doing a good job trying to hold all this tension. That's all you have to say. You will start feeling differently. It'll start using a different part of your mind, and it starts changing and shifting the way your brain works so that you're not trying to handle the problem from the problem. You're trying to handle the problem now from a different part of your brain. Somebody conducting, somebody caring, somebody uplifting, right? Not the part that's like, oh my gosh, it's so bad. Our brains are just the storage unit for all this information, like a computer, and so we got to run a new program. All right. I say relax on my exhale. It helps. Exactly. You can say, I choose to relax. Say it kindly. Try an ounce of kindness more than the word relax, if you, as a suggestion. Okay. Relaxing is love for myself, whatever. Okay. And I'm not saying that in a like gushy way. I truly mean it in a vibrational way. The energy of love. Okay. Try it and see what happens, because relaxing can also build energy. That energy can be used for healing of yourself and yourself somatically, right? And others. Okay. And that is how healers work. That is how it works. That's the function, I think. All right. Okay. The more you resist, the more it persists. That's right. That's right. And remember, here's the thing with resistance too, you guys. We're in fight flight when we are trauma bonded. You are in a state of flight. Well, yeah, you got resistance. You're in fight. You're resistant. Yes, you have, you're in avoidance. You have flight. Freeze and fawn come into play. Yes, you're bartering and begging. You're in a state of fawning. Yes, and so recognizing that is, so what happens if you go watch some of the other videos on the practical and physiological things that happen with trauma bonding, but I'll just say real quick here that when the amygdala takes over, that is so something scary happens, man with hatchet running around behind you, and your brain goes, run, fear, fight, whatever it is. Beg for forgiveness, beg for salvation, whatever it is, it's going to try, and it's going to go to these quick responses. Those quick responses, the part of the brain that's responsible for that is the amygdala. When you are in your amygdala, when that part of the brain is what is controlling the wheels that are turning in here, I picture cogs and wheels, right? The rest of the brain, all the factory workers in the rest of your brain take a break. Okay, so they kick their feet up and they're like, yeah, amygdala's got this. So the rest of your brain's like, and it slows down. The amygdala is like big and huge and taking over. Your logic doesn't work then. So you may think it is because you're reasoning and fighting your way through, but you're actually operating from fight. You're not operating from clear thought. You're operating from survival. Survivors of emotional abuse operate from survival a lot, for a lot of their life, for a long, long time. What I'm suggesting here is healing from a different place, which is not survival. Healing from self and knowing and presence and self-awareness and love and kindness. Totally different. It does mean stepping out of fight flight and being willing to say, okay, I can feel safe for 2 seconds to do that. So that's the other piece of resistance, is that's partially why we're doing it, is we're in fight flight, we're in survival. Yeah, there's going to be resistance, there's going to be fight, there's going to be flight, there's going to be freeze, where you're just disassociated and stuck. And what I see with people as they're healing from trauma bonding, like in group setting or in coaching, is that there's cycles of it. They'll be like, I'm doing so much better, but I'm just stuck. You're still there. You're still in the freeze. Okay, let's get out of that part of the brain. Was it Angela that was asking about somatic healing? Coming into your body, mindfulness is a way to use the body somatically to alter the way the brain is functioning so that it can go. So if I'm sitting here and I'm filling my body with the awareness of itself, in other words, yeah, there's my hands, there's my feet. Okay, oh, I've got kneecaps. Look at that. There's a whole body here. All right. It required a part of my brain to do that, right? And it's not the part of the brain that's in fight flight. It's not the part of the brain that's in logic trying to tell you this story. It's in the part of the brain, it's a totally different part of my mind. That means I'm not operating right now as I'm speaking to you because I'm aware of myself. I'm operating from a different part of my brain. If I'm doing that to work on my healing, I'm working on my healing from somewhere that isn't the trauma. Boom. You just had a whole different experience of yourself, and you just had a whole different tool to use for your whole life, for functioning with others, for learning clarity. I had a whole talk in group coaching today about what is clarity versus boundaries, and it was fantastic. So yeah, it gives you a whole different way of being with yourself so that you can heal. All right, anything else with trauma bonding? And I realize this is a little not the norm that people talk about with healing, but it is what I'm seeing actually have some effect on people and actually be able to function differently. You guys, we have not been taught how to be healthy empaths. I don't like the word, but there you have it. We haven't been taught to be healthy for ourselves and also empathic human beings, because this society that we live in doesn't honor that. This growing up that we had didn't teach it. The parents that a lot of us had would use it. Okay, even if you had really awesome parents, they, like I have a lot of people I talk to who have these most loving, wonderful parents, but they said, but they taught me to be a doormat because they didn't have any boundaries with people, and people walked all over them, right? So we aren't taught how to do this, and yeah, so I'm trying to help right there. Okay, anything else you guys want to say in here? If there's anything I missed, please hit me up again, because it's harder to scroll when I'm on my phone. Otherwise, we'll head out. More tools. Very good. Excellent. So yeah, if you need coaching, group coaching, or peer support, or you have a question you need to email me or whatever, it's all in the main description of every video. So just read through. It's right down there, and pretty easy to find. Hit the thumbs up, you guys. Hit subscribe. Share the videos. I'll try to chop this up into more bite-sized pieces and stick them up as videos as well, so that you don't have to watch a full hour to get information. So yeah, and go back and watch those on there if you want. Watch those. There's lots of tools in there for exactly what I'm talking about here toward the end, and different ways of approaching healing. Okay, especially if you're feeling like what you've been trying isn't enough, isn't getting you where you want to be. Okay, that's it. I will see you guys next week. Have a lovely weekend. Take care. Bye-bye. And thank you all for being here. Thanks, Chris, for modding. I don't know if there's any other mods here today. I think it's just Chris. Okay, cool. See you guys later. Bye-bye.